Kia ora te whānau o ihu karaiti, ko Andrew Doubleday aho. Today we're looking at the Gospel for Sunday the 18th of June, and it's Matthew chapter 9 verse 35 through to 10 verse 8. So we pick up the narrative in chapter 9. Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and curing every disease and every sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the labourers are few. Therefore ask the Lord of the harvest to send out labourers into his harvest." In chapter 10, then Jesus summoned his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to cast them out and to cure every disease and every sickness. These are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, also known as Peter, and his brother Andrew. James, son of Alphaeus. James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the tax collector, James, son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanian, and Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed him. These 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions: "Go nowhere among the Gentiles and enter no town of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. As you go, proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. You received without payment, give without payment." So, we start with Jesus going around the towns and villages, preaching in the synagogues, and we see the people coming to him by droves, the great crowds. The interesting thing for me is, what does Jesus see when he sees these people? I want to suggest he sees people just like us. I'm aware that most of us are expert in appearance management. We put on a really good show. We're able to demonstrate that we somehow look as though we've all got our act together and we know who we are, where we're going, what we're doing, and what it's all about. The reality is that Jesus sees us as we really are. The masks stripped away. He sees the quiet desperation, the uncertainty, the hunger, the emptiness. He sees the lack of focus or meaning. He sees the questions: who am I? Why am I here? What am I doing? He sees the hopelessness and the helplessness. And it says that their people are described as harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. I want to suggest that what we're seeing here is the core to Jesus' heart and how he responds. Does he want people following him to pander to his ego? Would that make him appear successful? Indicate that his life is worthwhile, that he's somebody? But we see that Jesus isn't motivated by a commitment to an ideology. He's not motivated by shoulds and oughts. He's motivated by compassion. Because he sees people, he sees us as we really are. All the masks and all the defences stripped back. Who we really are. And does he respond with revulsion, with disgust, seeing all our secrets laid bare? No, he responds with compassion. He recognises that people often behave the way they do in unhelpful and sinful ways out of pain. And he responds with compassion. The Greek word that is used there is splanchnizomai. It is used rarely in the New Testament. It is only ever used of Jesus or of God, or of a character that Jesus uses in one of his parables to indicate the heart of God. He uses it to indicate the heart of the Father when he sees his son long in the distance and he's been yearning for him for years. And it said he has compassion. He has splanchnizomai on him, and he runs out to embrace his son. He doesn't care what he's done. He's just so pleased to see him come home. This is who Jesus is. He responds to us with splanchnizomai, with compassion. Now the word actually you find in the old King James version, the King James, it talks about the bowels of mercy, because that's where it's experienced in the deepest core of who we are. Splanchnizomai has the sense of his heart turning over within him. Had that experience? When you've seen something that moves you profoundly, the sense of wanting to reach out and make it right in compassion to bring healing. And that's what's happening with Jesus. He sees the crowd. His heart turns over within him. He just wants it to be okay. He wants them, he wants us to be okay. This is who Jesus is. And I want to suggest that if we want to understand the gospel, we need to understand this. Because this is not about getting bums on seats. This is not about getting a whole team of people to sign up to our way of seeing. This is not even about making sure that people get to heaven when they die. It's about meeting them where they are right now, right here, in their lostness, in their confusion, in their pain. And he's driven by compassion, that they might have strength to face the day, that they might have hope to be able to face tomorrow, that they might experience a confidence that they're not alone, that they are deeply loved by God, that Jesus' love, Jesus' compassion, Jesus' commitment reflect the Father's love, the Father's compassion, the Father's commitment to them, to us. That is the basis for evangelism. I want us to notice too what he says to his disciples. He says, "The harvest is plentiful, but the labourers are few. Therefore ask the Lord of the harvest to send out labourers into his harvest." He saw the spiritual hunger as a sign of longing. Longing to be loved, longing to be accepted, longing to know that they were okay, and a longing for God. And Jesus invites his disciples to see people the way that he sees them, to see them through the eyes of love, not through the eyes of judgment or fear, and to pray to the Father for people of deep compassion to respond to the needs that they see around them, to respond as they see through the eyes of Jesus, as they see beyond the masks and beyond the barriers that we put up to hide who we really are. And then we find that at the end of that prayer, the chapter breaks. It's really not helpful. Because then we move on into chapter 10, where he commissions the 12. And what does he do? He sends them out into the harvest field. Are these the ones who now see through Jesus' eyes? It may be they're the ones who he has chosen because they've demonstrated that they get it, that they do see, that they do understand. For now anyway. And you may ask, but what about their failures? What about Peter? What about Judas' spectacular failure? Yeah, true. But these are all things that up to 3 years, maybe in the future. But for now, they may have all had their lives profoundly affected by Jesus, and it may have been quite recent. They were at one time counted among those who were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And you think, well, how do you know that, Andrew? Surely he picked the ones that were the strongest and had it all together. Well, we read in verse 7, as you go, proclaim the good news. The kingdom of heaven has come near. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, cast out demons. You have received without payment, give without payment. That's freely you have received, freely give. They know, each of them, we don't know their stories, but they know their stories. They know how indebted they are to Jesus. They know how Jesus, recently perhaps, has changed their lives so much for the better, given them a future and a hope. So they pray as Jesus invites them to. They pray for harvesters. They pray for workers, for labourers to go out into the harvest field. And as they pray, I want to suggest they imbibe something of Jesus' urgency. And what happens? Well, it looks to me like they become the answer to their own prayers. And we need to be careful what we pray for. But it seems to me that's exactly what's happening. He's called them to pray. They've prayed. The next thing that we see is that he is commissioning them. He is ordaining them. He is sending them out to do exactly what he's done, to give to others what they have received. Freely, freely, freely you have received. Freely give, he says. And away they go. It's something to be aware of. If you have a prayer burden on your heart, it may be that God is or that God will call you at some time to be the answer to your own prayers. It happened to the 12. Why not us? God bless you. Amen.